Based on Blue Star Family's recent pulse check, we know that military families have real concerns and questions about the COVID-19 vaccine, and that's why we're here today, to let people talk directly to the experts. Over half of our respondents said that they did not feel comfortable at this time getting the vaccine, and many remain undecided. Their concerns range from distrust of the vaccine's development process to its safety, overall efficacy, and to the potential for unknown side effects. The concerns that you shared with us are what led us to convene this group of medical experts today. We shared those concerns with Dr. Fauci's team, and he immediately agreed to join us. Throughout today's event, we encourage you to share your thoughts, questions, and concerns in the chat. We're eager to hear from you. We'll do our best to answer as many questions as we can. It's my hope that during today's town hall, we'll get you the answers you need to make the best, safest decisions for your family. And now it's my true honor to welcome Dr. Anthony Fauci to join us today. As you all know, Dr. Fauci has been at the front line of infectious disease research for the past 3 decades, and he's a leading voice on COVID-19 pandemic here in America. Dr. Fauci, we are humbled, excited to have you with us today. We have tens of thousands of military and veteran families watching right now. Thank you for sharing your knowledge and your expertise. Welcome.
Thank you very much, Kathy. It's a real pleasure to be here with you today. Let me first start off by echoing those eloquent words of Dr. Biden and to express my extraordinary respect for the Blue Star families and the Blue Star Family Project. Thank you very much for giving me the opportunity to be with you. Because of this extraordinary respect I have, I would do this anytime that you ask me for it. Let me just spend a couple of minutes just making some general statements, and I know we'll have a lot of questions that relate to the issue of vaccines, but we here in the United States and globally are living through truly a historic and devastating pandemic, which has already killed over 2 million people worldwide, has infected more than 20 million people in the United States, leading to about 430,000 deaths. This is truly historic, the worst of a respiratory disease pandemic that we have seen in over 102 years. We right now, as I speak to you, are still within the grips of this, though even though things begin to plateau and are looking like they're going in the right direction over the last few weeks, we still have between 1 and 200,000 new infections each day, and we have anywhere between 3 and 4,000 deaths per day. That is the sobering and sad news. But the light at the end of the tunnel is the extraordinary success that we've had with the vaccine development program, where the United States government has been responsible for and heavily invested in the development of and/or the facilitation of the testing of 6 vaccine candidates, 2 of which have already received emergency use authorization. And by emergency use authorization means that the vaccines are now available and are being administered to people in the United States. 32 million injections of vaccine have already been given. I might just say very briefly, and then we'll open up for questions. People always ask, well, how do you know that this is a safe and effective vaccine, and what was the process? Well, the 2 vaccines that have already been approved for emergency use are from the company Moderna and Pfizer, and it's what's called a messenger RNA platform. It was tested in 30,000 people in the Moderna trial and in 44,000 people in the Pfizer trial. And the results were striking in the positive sense, a 94 to 95% efficacy against clinically recognizable disease, and in fact, a very strong, almost 100% protection against severe disease leading to death. So the results are extraordinary, but people ask, well, wait a minute, you developed this vaccine literally in less than a year from the time you knew about this new virus. So you always tell us that it takes 5 to 7 to 10 years. How did that happen? Were you reckless? Did you rush? Did you cut corners? And the answer is the speed is completely related to the extraordinary advances in scientific platform technology for vaccines. There were no corners cut. We did not sacrifice safety, nor did we sacrifice scientific integrity. And the decision to determine that the vaccine was safe and effective was made by independent bodies of vaccinologists, scientists, immunologists, statisticians, ethicists, that were beholden not to the federal government, nor to the companies, but to you, the American public. And that's really important for people to understand. And the decision to decide to administer it was again made by professional career scientists at the FDA in association with their own independent advisory board. So those decisions were both independent and transparent. And that's the reason why many of you hear me every day in the media saying, when your turn comes up, please get vaccinated, both for your own safety, for that of your family, and that for the American community in general. So Kathy, I'll stop there and be very happy to answer questions.
Thank you. I have a great many for you, so I'll try to go through them quickly. Probably one of the most questions we're asked the most is the one that you just talked about now, which was about the vaccine safety and the development process. Did part of this process start earlier than March of last year?
Oh, absolutely. And I think that's a good question, Kathy. And that's the reason why people sometimes get a misinterpretation. The science behind the development of this extraordinary new technology dates back well over a decade. And the people at the NIH who were working on this particular technology had been doing it for at least the last 10 years. And it was just so happened that by the time we actually needed it for the vaccine for COVID-19, it just happened to coincide with the scientific culmination of work that had been going on for so long.
And I think one of those doctors is my neighbor, Libby Higgs, so I have to give her a shout out.
Yes, she's part of the team.
Yeah. We had a lot of questions about side effects. Should people be concerned about side effects for this?
Well, in general, if you look at the safety of vaccines in general, any vaccine, the risk-benefit ratio of safety is about as good as you could get with any medical intervention that you give to anyone. The safety record for this, even though it's just been 1 year, has been really quite good. There have been some allergic reactions ranging from anywhere from 1 to 6 per million of people who have a very strong history of severe allergic reactions. And what we tell those people is that A, you should get vaccinated, but if you do, which we will strongly recommend, that you do it in a place that has the capability of treating an allergic reaction, namely in a clinic of some sort where you can get vaccinated. But that's a very rare adverse event. For everybody else, the vaccine looks quite safe.
Great. Are there current recommendations for children under 18? And especially, we're having a lot of concerns about pregnant women. What are the recommendations there? Okay,
so in one trial, individuals as young as 16 and then down to 12 have been tested. In the other, it was 18, but not below. In general, when you do vaccine studies, you don't put children right into the trial because children are vulnerable. So you wait until you get pretty confident that you're dealing with a safe and effective vaccine. And then you could start trials in children, which we have already done and will be doing over the next month or two, in what's called an age de-escalation study. So you start off with older children, and then you work you down to less old, younger, and then really young children. And then what you do is you get safety and immunogenicity data, and you bridge it to the efficacy data from the big trial, which means you don't have to test 30,000 or 44,000 children. You can get enough data from a smaller trial. With regard to pregnant women were not allowed in the initial trial, again, because pregnancy has a degree of vulnerability. So we did not do that. We're going to start tests in pregnant women literally now. I mean, as I'm speaking, they're starting and will go into February and March. One good news item is that after the EUA was delivered, and namely until people started getting vaccinated, there have been about 10,000 pregnant women out of the 32 million people or vaccinations that were given, and there have been no red flag signals. The FDA is monitoring that. So thus far, it looks quite safe for pregnant women. In fact, many of the pregnant women who decided they wanted to get vaccinated, even though they were not in the clinical trial, were actually healthcare providers who were deciding that the risk of getting COVID from their patients was far greater than any potential for adverse events from the vaccine. And in doing so, as I said, thus far, there have been no red flags of adverse events.
So here's a question. Do we know if the pregnant mother got the vaccine? Is the baby have some immunity?
Well, I mean, if it happens the way it happens with any type of vaccination, that the mother's antibodies, particularly the IgG antibodies, are passed through to the baby, so that the baby, for a certain amount of time, measured generally in months, will have immunity because of the passive transfer through the placenta into the baby, and also by breastfeeding.
That's very interesting. So right now, 18-year-olds, if the vaccine becomes available to them, it's safe from 18 up.
Yep, absolutely.
Great. I've had some questions about how does mRNA vaccine work in specific? What does that mean?
Okay, so RNA is the general molecular mechanism whereby we make all of the proteins and cells in our body. What it is that mRNA, and M stands for messenger. So it's a message to tell the body to make a protein. So when you get an mRNA vaccine, you stick in the coding sequence to make one of the components of SARS-CoV-2, and it's called the spike protein. And the spike protein is the part that sticks out from the virus, which makes it look like a crown.
Right.
That's why they call it coronavirus, because corona stands for crown.
Yeah.
And what happens is that when the mRNA codes for that protein, when you inject the mRNA into your muscle, it starts to code for a protein. The body sees the spike protein and thinks it's the virus.
Yeah.
But it's not the virus. It's one harmless component of the virus. So the body makes a nice response so that when the real virus tries to enter your body, you have a bunch of proteins called antibodies that jump all over that virus and prevent it from infecting you. So that's how it works.
So when people are concerned that they're getting something harmful with the vaccine, they really aren't. They're getting a faux coronavirus.
Oh, absolutely. It's impossible to get infected with coronavirus from the vaccine, because the vaccine codes for a soluble protein that induces the body. The other thing that's a question that everybody asks, well, this is RNA. Is that going to get into my genes and do something to my, and the answer is absolutely not. This is a messenger RNA that decays after a couple of days and then it's gone forever. You don't have to worry about
it. That's good. So will this be administered annually, do we think? Is this going to be a yearly shot like the flu vaccine?
Well, you know, honestly, we don't know the answer to that because we don't know what the durability of the vaccine, of the immune response to the vaccine is going to be. We hope it's longer than a year, and we hope that we get control of these variants or these mutations that occur so they don't obligate us to have to upgrade the vaccine every year. But if we have to do that, which I hope we don't, then that is not very difficult to do. It can easily be done.
Good. I have someone saying, I've got an autoimmune disease. Should I avoid the vaccine?
No. In fact, That's one of the good reasons why you should get vaccinated, because if you have an autoimmune disease, the likelihood is that you're on some form of therapy, like glucocorticoids or prednisone, as it were, to suppress the autoimmunity. If you are, then your body is immune compromised, which means you are more vulnerable to the serious outcome if in fact you do get infected with SARS-CoV-2. So even though your immune response may not be as robust as someone who has a normal immune response and is not immunosuppressed, still some response is always better than no response.
Yeah.
So for the people who have underlying conditions, they often ask me the question, does that mean I should not get vaccinated?
Right.
And my response is, on the contrary, that's more reason why you should get vaccinated.
Right. Good. Can you still be contagious after receiving the vaccine?
You know, theoretically, we haven't proven that you cannot be. You might be contagious. And the reason is that the endpoint of the study was efficacy against clinically relevant, clinically apparent disease. It is conceivable that because you're vaccinated, that you could get infected, but have no symptoms. And then what happens is that if that's the case, you would have vaccine in your nasopharynx and you could conceivably spread it to someone else, which is one of the reasons why we say after you get vaccinated, you can't just throw your mask away. You've got to out there in the community, continue to wear a mask. You're much more protected, but you've got to make sure you protect other people.
Well, my staff is pinging me that I'm going to have to let you go. You're a busy man, but this has been so wonderful. And I may impose on you to ask you to come back in a couple months and talk to us again, because you've been so kind. I can't thank you enough. I know all of our families, our veterans, military members, and their families have learned so much from hearing from you today. Thank you for helping them make informed decisions for themselves and their families. We're grateful to you. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Kathy. Very good to be with you. Thank you.